They were the heroes from the future, teenagers protecting the universe from those that would sow the seeds of chaos. Each had unique powers and abilities, and though they often had their differences, they came together to save the day as the Legion of Superheroes. Now, you can be a part of their adventures and learn the history of the future in the Legion Clubhouse.
This week on the Legion Clubhouse, will Booster save the president? Or will the president save himself?
Booster Gold number 9, Time Bridge Chapter 2. Published October 1986. Written by Dan Jurgens with art by Dan Jurgens and Mike DiCarlo. Synopsis. So, why does Booster Gold have a Legion flight ring anyway?
We are deep into the conspiracy to kidnap the president and the vice president, one George Bush, formerly of the CIA, and kill the vice president and replace the president with a clone, and then have another guy be elected as the vice president or named as the vice president, then retire, putting the other person in charge, which is a complicated process, almost as complicated as this story where two groups of heroes meet for the first time and decide to beat the crap out of each other.
Well, I mean, it's a fine tradition in comics. You meet a new hero, you smack the new hero around.
When did that start? Because it's kind of, by the 1980s, still kind of dumb.
I would say the first time I remember it is when Submariner fought the Human Torch in about 1940. But yeah, by the time of Booster Gold, this is the end of the Bronze Age. It is a well-worn tradition. It became, a huge. I think it really crystallized in the early days of the Marvel Universe, so about 1966, 67. But at this point, you meet a new guy, you fight the new guy. It's the law.
Yeah, no, it just continues and continues. I mean, even today, you see that same thing happen. Like 80 years later, something like that, and we're still doing that. So I don't know what the deal is with that. So anyway, Bush is boring. I will say that even in comic books, George Bush is rather dry and boring.
There's 1,000 points of light, Stephen. 1,000 points of light.
What does he say? He says something that's really dumb that I'm just like, what the heck? Why?
Well, as I recall from CIA briefings, this Chiller is an international hitman.
Yeah. I'd say we're obviously his next targets. And Ronald Reagan's just like, doesn't just be like, would you shut up and offer something valuable? Of course we're the targets. Why else do you think he has a gun?
Anyway. Reagan's just like, well, I won't remember any of this. Yeah, and I will say this. One of the things that I really appreciated about early Booster Gold is that it kind of felt like a Marvel comic in the just barely post-crisis DC universe. I mean, issue 1 came out before the crisis ended. But as we read through this, it really does feel like, hey, here's this new guy. He's all about fame. He's all about fortune. I do appreciate the fact that there was a time, Stephen, that Booster Gold's force field was actually gold.
Yeah. Which
gave him his name. Well, part of his name. And I loved that. I loved that thing. It was one of those moments where, Jurgens, and I give Jurgens a lot of static, but Jurgens does a really good job with this issue, writing and drawing. There's a scene with the Legion and Booster flying under what I think is the Golden Gate Bridge together. Beautiful shot, just a really strong issue, but it does feel like this is a Marvel comic from 1979.
I mean, considering that this takes place in New York City, if they're flying under the Golden Gate Bridge, ooh, that is impressive.
Oh, yeah, they fly really fast. Oh, maybe it's the Brooklyn Bridge.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's probably the GW Bridge. That's what it is.
Yeah.
I don't know from New York. I'm from Kansas. What do I know about the city?
Yeah. So there's really nothing in this book. I mean, it is a fight of people who are, I don't know. So there's something about this story. I'm not sure I would agree with you that it's well written, because it's fairly tropey, number one. Number two, it's almost like little kids when they play. That's kind of how this book reads, because not only do the heroes fight biff, bam, boom, and oh my goodness, we've been mistaken. You're going to kill the president? No, I thought you were going to kill the president. That means the president must be in trouble. Meanwhile, Skeets saves the day. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere comes the bad guys, even more bad guys. Ah, ha, ha, ha. And then they have to take down the bad guys. It's really weird. It is just a really weird way to plot out this story. And at times it feels like certain things have been written or included only to ensure that this story could cover 2 issues, when in fact it could have just covered 1. And I don't know what Booster Gold sales. I don't know what Booster Gold sales are doing by issue, 9. But it just feels like, hey, let's take the most popular kids, have them show up for a couple of issues to tweak sales just a little bit.
This is the second half of Booster's Origins. I don't know from sales necessarily, but I know that I was excited about Booster Gold when it showed up in those first few issues where we didn't really know what was going on with Booster. And finally getting this story is actually, essentially Booster's debut, Booster's origin. And I really appreciate kind of the way it comes together. And that may be a function of my 15-year-old mind remembering this, but it's also, I feel like it's kind of a by the numbers story.
Yeah.
But it's hitting the important numbers. It's, okay, here are the established heroes to understand this new kid and say, hey, new kid, okay, we beat you up for a while, but now you're okay. There's a little bit of explanation. There's a little bit of, Booster showing off. The moment where he's like, oh, I don't know if I'm strong enough to headbutt this helicopter, but I'm going to do it anyway. That's a moment to me that defines Booster as he's not particularly bright, but he's got bravado out the wazoo. And I feel like that kind of works for him. It's a very 80s story to me. And, not just because Ronald Reagan literally gives him the name Booster Gold by misunderstanding him because, Reagan is 89,000 years old. This Booster Gold. But I don't know. I like the issue. I feel like it's a strong issue, but it is stuck in those, those 80s tropes of there are 15, backburnered subplots that are simmering. Somebody is kidnapped Booster's manager's daughter, and oh, the 1000 is still on the way. And oh, look, there's Thorn for 5 seconds in the background. There's a whole lot of stuff kind of swirling around and percolating. And in a lot of ways, this is a Spider-Man story from 1979, presented in the DC universe.
So that's why it's just like it feels so outdated, and that's not just because I'm looking at this from today, but you got Flashdance in this piece, which I thought by 86 Flashdance was already a thing and over, but maybe not.
Flashdance was everywhere. Everybody wanted to flash their dances.
It came out in 83, so this is like a 3-year-old reference that they're making with Monica.
It's cool. It was all the rage.
I don't think so. Also, the weird thing is, what's going on with and this is probably just the Booster Gold marketing campaign, but at one point we get to see the 1000, and it's like, we have the comic book creators in a torture chamber, and it's like Dan Jurgens and Mike DiCarlo are in a torture chamber. What does that even mean? And so that's a little weird too.
Wait, what?
Yeah, go on to the page 21, where they're like, the SciTap will soon drain all the knowledge these two have. Since they write and draw the Booster Gold comic book, it's safe to assume they have inside information regarding Booster Gold. And I'm like, what? Is this been a comic book the entire time? And if so, why didn't the creators lean a little bit maybe more into a Deadpool and beat Rob Liefeld at that game by breaking the fourth wall nonstop?
The interesting thing is, this must be the in-universe DC comic or the in-universe comic, because neither of those people are Dan
that's what I'm saying.
Who is that
it's probably part of the Booster Gold marketing machine.
Yeah, I never got that.
That he's so popular, he's in commercials selling men's cologne, and he's got comic books and action figures and all of that stuff. And soon Booster Gold will fall. and then it'll just be a joke. And then people will not trust him, and it will make him the perfect person to witness the rebirth of the DC universe, kind of like Jonah Hex is doing over in the Hex comic. In the far future of 2000 something.
2000 something?
Yeah. Yeah, whenever they did that reboot and Booster was tasked with secretly saving the DC universe by Superman. Remember that?
It was post-Infinite Crisis. I'm going to say 2007, 2009.
Yeah,
like that.
In the 2000s.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's fine, I guess. The art is okay. I think that there's a lot going on that didn't need to go on in this piece. I think these two issues could have been a single issue and done the exact same thing. But they spend literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pages, if not more, just fighting and not misunderstanding. There's never a fight. Well, maybe in more recent Legion books proper, fights go on for 8 pages, but most of the time they're done in like 3 or 4 pages. And this one goes on for 8 issues, including the stuff that happened last issue as well, that went on for probably 8 issues.
And I think that does, it's kind of character establishing for Booster that he's not the brightest bulb in the barrel, too. But I don't know. I didn't necessarily feel like it was a failing so much as it was a different sort of pacing decision. And maybe it's just, that it does feel retro in the right way to me. I don't know. I didn't feel like this issue was particularly slow or padded. I felt like it was trying to give us a story that could have gone, if you had a Superman or if you even had Batman in this story, it could have gone a lot quicker. But because it's Booster, it does it in a weird off-brand way where he's so paranoid that there are cops coming back to steal his powers that he doesn't even try to talk to them until they're already like, hey, maybe this guy's not what he seems.
Yeah. Yeah. It's okay. All right. Moving on.
If you enjoy the show, we would appreciate your support. You can find out more and become a Legion Clubhouse member at patreon.com/major spoilers.
You guys were wondering why we were off for a couple of weeks, because I had a computer meltdown. And it looks like, from what the computer people tell me, hey, man, you probably ought to think about considering getting a new computer soon, because these computers, man, they don't last like they used to back in the 1980s when you could have a computer last a decade. Your computers now start having an expiration date in 4 years. So, hey, if you want to have this show continue and keep it coming into your feeds whenever possible, then maybe become a patron over at patreon.com/major spoilers. In addition to keeping this podcast alive, you can help us replace our main computer system so that we don't have to run into issues where you go for several weeks without a show because computers are busted. Patreon.com/major spoilers. Thanks for your support.
Legion of Superheroes Volume 3, Number 27, Going Home. Published October 1985. Written by Paul Levitz with art by Greg LaRocque, Colleen Doran, Gene Colan, and Shawn McManus. Synopsis. The Legion of Superheroes have some unfinished business with Mordru.
Finally, back into the Legion of Superheroes, and hey, look, it's Mordru. Mordru's back, everybody.
Mordru. God, what a gorgeous cover. Oh, well, the cover to 27, the cover to the reboot or the relaunched 352, hideous. But the cover of 27 is just so pretty. Projector has never looked better.
She's so tiny on the page, though.
Yeah, but she's still the central point of it. It's awesome.
No, Mordru is the central part of it.
No, where does your eye go? It goes
right to Mordru, the big guy in the middle who's busting out of the earth and saying, "Oh, prepare, it's time for Mordru to be back." He's taken on a Hulk Hogan appearance. He's beefed up.
See Misa behind him going, woo.
He is beefed up from his appearances. So it is like I've been saying, let's beef up these characters and give them a whole new take on life. And so then we go to
Mordru always been terrifying, though. I mean, Mordru's whole thing is, look at
Yeah,
me,
but
I'm
now they're
terrifying.
amping him up even more. And by doing that, they've decided, hey, we're going to just crack this guy out of his cage and let him wander free. It's all part of our new rehabilitation program. Or, since it's the 1980s and we were just talking about Reagan, maybe it's, hey, let's let all the prisoners out of the asylums and let them run loose in the streets, and that'll solve our prison problem. And that seems to be
Uh,
what's being reflected here.
they do take the time to magically, change his mind to that as a child so that they can try and, re-educate him, which now that you think about it is also very 80s and maybe a little 1937 Doc Savagey. But I feel like the Mordru thing is kind of well overdue. I feel like of all the people in the Legion universe, to try and do that with a Mordru, I feel like is, well, at this point, it's not yet a cliche. It will become a cliche. It's very soon, actually. When we get into Legion Volume 4, there's going to be a lot of this. But in a lot of ways, this is the Mordru going forward. This is Mordru's whole new thing. He's no longer going to wear a sweater and a hat and ride around on a jet ski and try to kill the Flash and Captain Marvel.
I don't think they reverted him to a child. I think they just took away his
Yeah.
powers.
And look what Misa says. She's like, "Oh, hello, young Mordru, who has the brain of a child. Child in the body of a man, you are among friends."
Okay, I guess.
They restored his soul, and they've made him young, and they're going to teach him a new
He
way.
looks like a hippie, like a dirty hippie. I don't know
Part
what
of
the
that is
deal is, because when
Shawn
Mordru shows
McManus.
up in previous issues, he's scary. He's a scary dude. Even on the cover, he's a scary looking dude. And then all of a sudden, this guy that's wearing a winged hat, suddenly his wings turn into like little floppy ears, and his imposing purple tunic now makes him look like a Charlie Brown guy or some guy that got a sweater in the dumpster in 1972 and hasn't taken it off since. It's really weird that they kind of, I don't know, they really just do a number on him to make him not scary, which is really weird.
Shawn McManus, who draws that particular segment, is a very peculiar and particular artist. He had just at this point either come off or was halfway through a run on Omega Men, and all of the Omega Men are weird, spindly alien guys. They actually literally have a guy in there whose name was Schlagen, and Schlagen is just this weird, spindly alien with like sticks all over his head. I agree with you. His Mordru looks really weird,
He looks like
but man, his White Witch is
Charlie
killer.
Brown. And White Witch is pretty
His
creepy
White
too.
Witch looks scary and creepy and like
Yeah, it's
weird and
really weird.
arcane. I really like that.
So are there multiple artists on this issue? Is that what's going on?
Yes, there are at least three because Colleen Doran does the Trom story, and LaRocque and I think Mike DiCarlo do the opening sequence on Orlando, and then the sequence with Mordru is all Shawn McManus, and then we get Gene Colan on the Colossal Boy segment, and then we wrap it up with LaRocque and I think, fingers crossed, DiCarlo again. And I think it's DiCarlo because of the Saturn girl face on page either 18 or 19.
Yeah, well, the White Witch segment, the Mordru segment, it's just weird. It's just like crazy. The faces are all elongated. The eyes are too close together or too far apart, depending on which person we're talking about. It's just, and again, I realize they're aliens. Hey, they're not supposed to look like humans. Get over it. Yeah, no, I understand all that, but it is just, it's weird and a little off-putting. And I don't think that's what you're wanting to do with your White Witch, who is quickly becoming one of the more powerful characters in the comic.
I feel like this may be the reverse of our ongoing conversation about Humberto Ramos because it's kind of not necessarily the art styles are the same, but the thought processes is the same, where he's doing something weird and outre that kind of makes the White Witch stand out from the other members of the Legion. Granted, I mean, he does not really come back. We don't get a lot of Shawn McManus Legion work. But having him do these bizarre weirdos on planet Xerox and having them all look freaky and strange. If you look at the Guardians, the Fire Guardian is still there with his funny head, and it's to me it's interesting, but it's also one of those things where I definitely get why it's not everybody's taste. Especially your thing when you said Charlie Brown sweater, I couldn't unsee it, and now I'm mad at you.
I mean, I thought that's what they were going for. The very first Charlie Brown cartoon is, here comes Charlie Brown. Good old Charlie Brown. Yep, good old Charlie Brown. And then as Charlie Brown exits the panel, I hate that guy. I think that's what they're doing with Mordru. Oh, look, everybody, it's Mordru. Oh, we sure hate Mordru. Oh, we sure hate Mordru. Mordru is the worst. I kind of love Mordru because he's dopey. And then they're like, hey, we're going to yank the football away. In this case, the football being his mind. And then we end that story that way. And then this will never backfire on the magical beings of the future at all, ever. Yeah, never.
Yeah, they will definitely not die in the next 20 issues because of that decision.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know. I think there are some people that are beyond rehabilitation, and Mordru, I think, is one of those people. And I think they proved it the last time, which is why they buried him like they did. They were like, we're burying this guy and we're never going to dig him up. And then they dig him up. So anyway.
I understand the sentiment. I feel like the intention was probably better than the execution on the Mordru.
Well, yeah, because the way we're going to do it, as you said, is the Doc Savage way. We're going to scramble his brains so that he's not bad. Again, that is morally questionable. Even by the 1980s, you would think that people would think lobotomizing somebody is not a good idea.
And when he does, or if he does come back, I should say, because
he'll be back. He's one of the biggies.
Oh, I know. I didn't. I wanted to confuse people, but you do get to that point where if and when he comes back, he's going to be madder that they scrambled his brains. And I feel like maybe your theory of let's amp him up is actually, in this case, let's give him a reason to be mad, really good reason to be mad.
On the plus side, what they're doing is also pulling the wool over everyone's eyes, because they're like, see how we amped up the Fatal Five? See how we amped up Stargrave? You see how we amped up this guy? Oh, now here comes Mordru. And I'm sure everyone's like, oh my gosh, they're going to amp up Mordru. And they're like, nope, we're going to make him a child and send him off into the sunset. And then everyone's like, what the heck? So that maybe the reversal is a little bit more shocking later down the road. But I thought you made him a good guy. No, bad guys are always bad. Bad guys are always bad.
Hawkeye used to be bad.
No, he was just drawn that way. Anyway, Princess Projectra has decided that she is no longer going to be queen of Orlando, and instead she's going to go back and be Censor Girl forever.
Because the rule of man is an illusion, and my new powers allow me ... to
Her hair is
It's
weird.
Interesting. Her hair is very weird. And that I blame on Mike DiCarlo. But more importantly, this opening sequence does kind of change the way, at least I perceive Projectra, because she's always been kind of I don't know, maybe a proto-Karen. She's that girl who is like, well, I do what I want, la-di-da-di-da. Oh, wait, you hurt me? You've done something? Now I snap your neck. But you get to a point here where she's like, I am no longer interested in pursuing the throne, of being the queen. This will always be my home, but now I see that my place is somewhere else. It's a weird decision, but it feels like kind of an adult decision.
She doesn't really, she doesn't really clarify why she can't be the queen, except that the more I sit on this throne, the more it reminds me of my husband who is dead.
Right.
Beyond that,
she doesn't really have lies.
She doesn't really have. There's nothing that says that the royal throne is corrupt, right? There's nothing in this that says that royalty is bad. She is literally just saying, "Hey, I can't be here because it reminds me of my husband. I'm going to abandon the leadership of this world and let you guys figure it out for yourselves while I go and play make-believe with my friends."
She overtly says, though, that all rule of man is an illusion. Either way, I feel like I like the decision, mostly because I feel like she's better as Censor Girl than probably she has been as Projectra since the mid 70s. Honestly, at the point where Projectra sort of became Karate Kid's MacGuffin, for lack of a better word, the reason that he did what he did and had to go back in time to earn her hand and blah, blah, blah. I don't feel like we've seen a lot of really interesting Projectra stuff. And so giving her this, even this weird new esoteric craziness, I kind of dig it. I feel like it does something interesting for her for the first time in a while. So
I would kind of be okay if they just decided that we don't need her. She could be retired. I kind of was, I'm kind of okay with Karate Kid and Princess Projectra retiring once they got married. I'm really okay with Saturn Girl and Lightning Lad not being part of the Legion anymore, except that they can't. They're just like, well, once we've included them, they have to be part of a story for all time. Sorry, Tyrock. Sorry. But yeah, you've got to include these people for all time, Tyrock. And it's okay if I think it's okay if you retire a character and they're never heard from again. I think that makes the story interesting. It gives their story a completeness. If you want to, at some point in the future, go, hey, something's going on Rorondo, and we need to go and see what's going on and maybe help out. That could be a story, but I don't think that you need to have a Princess Projectra, a Censor Girl in the Legion of Superheroes. I think it's okay for that story to be done. I think that's the same way with Starboy and Dream Girl. They could have, I mean, in Starboy's case, he was kind of run out on a rail unfairly, but I can see it's okay if those people are gone. I mean, when was the last time that we saw Chuck and Duo Damsel? We haven't seen Duo Damsel in probably 50 issues. We've seen Chuck a couple of times. Duo Damsel's not just hanging around doing anything. And you don't see people writing in complaining about, we want our Duo Damsel. I think we're okay just not having these people around all the time.
I don't know. I feel like in a lot of ways, the versatility of the Legion and having that, oh, look what happened. Oh, 16 years ago, this guy used to be a Legionnaire. I kind of like that. I see your argument, but it doesn't necessarily feel like a complaint about the issues so much as it is about kind of the approach, if that makes sense.
It's part of it is the approach, but part of it is you can tell that the creators have favorites, right? And Projectra seems to be Paul Levitz's favorite, or at least one of his favorites. And so no matter what happens, we're going to have Princess Projectra in the piece. Yeah, we don't need Tyrock. Yeah, we don't need Duo Damsel hanging around all the time, screwing up the scene. But dang it, we need Princess Projectra here. I don't know why we need Princess Projectra here, because she's not Supergirl. And so, what's that?
We thought she was Supergirl for a minute.
I mean, you thought she was Supergirl.
Oh, did I?
Yeah. But everyone else kind of saw through that facade. Remember, we used our vision and we saw through and we're like, the suit is empty. That can only mean one thing. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm just not happy with the Princess Projectra story. I was fine when it was like, oh, look, Karate Kid made the ultimate sacrifice, and now her whole dimension is gone, right? Her whole planet is gone into another dimension.
Right.
Tyrock. And she somehow is able to just pass through worlds very easily because they made sure to prepare their spell for the day or whatever. And it's just like, okay, whatever. If that's what they want to do, that's fine. But I'm not sure that Princess Projectra / Censor Girl really adds anything special to the team that the other members couldn't pick up the slack on. Like Element Lad. We check in on Element Lad and we find out what he's been doing his entire life, building monuments to all the fallen people of Tron.
Trom.
Yep, that's what I said. Trom.
And in a way, this is a horrifying issue for Element Lad, because on the one hand, I really like seeing a focus put on his sort of spiritual side, which is going to become, a central part of Element Laddery sooner rather than later. But it's also horrifying because this man has been taking his time off whenever he has it to go home and pray and turn the bodies of his dead people into little grave sites, little stones called sarins. And I'm just like, oh my God, how dark is that? This kid's like 13 years old. He becomes a Legionnaire. So he's fighting for his life by day. And by night, he's like the world's creepiest gravedigger.
And then just like forces his pseudo girlfriend into converting to his religion. He's like, what is this? Some kind of a church? Yes, it's a church. Pray with me. Pray with me now. And she's like, I guess we'll pray. Does this mean we're married? In which case, these two should never get together. He's like, in my world, we have nothing as marriage. Yeah, because you're the lone survivor. What'd your mom and dad do?
Right.
Dingus. Oh, we prayed really hard, and that's how I was created. It's like, these
are element shapers. That's entirely possible.
It is really weird. It is really weird when they try to inject religion into comic books. Most of the time, it does not work. And this is one of those times where it almost seems like you're making fun of religion.
I feel like the weird hippy-dippy spiritualism here is kind of weirdly welded into place. And I do appreciate with you the line about, well, we don't marry. You'll have to ask me if we get married. But yeah, this is kind of getting married. But I feel also like having Element Lad have some sort of spirituality. And in this case, it's kind of like a Jedi, the living force thing, or, we dream beauty into the world, blah, blah, blah. Everybody's dead. There is no God. Let's have a slushie. But I kind of also love this sequence. And I don't know. Part of it is the darkness, and part of it is just this is so weird, but it's also so unique.
So are they married or are they not married?
They are not married. No.
Okay, because it's like, okay, then you're going to have to quit. And if you don't quit, you're a hypocrite.
Jen is just basically saying that he is sharing everything with her. So this is like taking your girlfriend home to meet your parents, only your parents are dead. So you take her home to an empty, dead planet and show her the church where your parents used to pray, and then go, here, you want to pray with me? And it'll be kind of like...
That's not creepy at all.
Parents.
That's like an A24 film in the making.
It is creepy. It is incredibly creepy, but it's also an interesting take because there are a lot of soul survivors in comics. I mean, heck, there are 6 or 8 of them in the Legion, but none of them have this weird, I am the last sexton of a planet-side graveyard thing. And
I mean, Superman, to be fair,
until it becomes too crowded.
Superman does kind of do that as well. He just doesn't do it to the extreme.
Right.
But
And he doesn't have a physical planet to go back to.
But certainly in Kingdom Come, Mark Waid made him do that. Where he built the gravestones of everybody who got nuked. Yeah, it's weird. It's a weird sequence. And what's even weirder is still the fact that Jim and Shapeshifter Girl are still not accepted by the parents. The parents are still somewhat xenophobic about her.
I don't know if I'd call it xenophobic. They are uncomfortable when she uses her powers. And I don't know. I mean, yes, it could be a deflection, but Marta is like, oh, I can't stand watching my son grow up to be 50 feet tall either, but it...
we can't stand to see him grow up to be a 50-foot tall giant either, but I still love him.
Steven!
I mean, that's what she's thinking. Come on. And Dad is just sitting there like, Dad is just sitting there with creepy shadows on his face. When you put the shadows over the eyes like that, it means that somebody is thinking bad things.
This is Gene Colan. Gene Colan puts shadows everywhere he can.
Yeah, and it makes everybody look creepy and suspicious, and something weird is going on.
They're not Eclipsos. They're just lit funny.
No, there are definitely a couple of Calypso movements. No, go back to, I don't know what page it is.
Oh, I
but
see it.
It's the opening page where Dad is like, his face is in the shadow, and you're like, oh, that means that he's evil, or he's thinking bad thoughts, or he doesn't agree with his
Mom
wife.
is an Eclipso.
And then Mom is an Eclipso. I tell you what, they should have leaned into that. That would have been the funniest thing. Like, they do this whole thing for years, just keep dropping in these color things. And everyone's like, oh, no, it's Gene Colan. That's just his art style. And then suddenly you reveal Eclipso as being like, no, I have been inside these people all along, silently lurking for thousands of years, waiting to return and unleash my wrath on the people of this planet. That would be funny. That would be funny. Also, what's by the time we get to creepy Quizlet spying on everybody, why is everybody got on a different costume? Why is Dream Girl and Starboy, why do they have on like each other's costumes? And why is Invisible Kid not wearing a shirt? And why is Sunboy suddenly wearing a pop collar from like 1965? Why is he dressed like Adam Warlock?
These are meant to be their street clothes. And okay. I know it's freaky. If you look closely, Invisible Kid is not wearing a shirt. He's wearing a shirt the exact color of his skin because he has. So you're saying sleeves.
It's a coloring error?
I don't know if it's a coloring error. I just think it's bad coloring because he has sleeves and he has a neckline. But yeah, it does look like he's just floating around. But
well, yeah, if you go to the end, of the issue, he's got his shirt on. But it's just really weird that it looks like he's not wearing a shirt and giving Block a massage.
Yeah.
And then what is the deal with Dream Girl and Starboy with the reverse costumes?
That is her street clothes or his street clothes. I think she's literally doing that thing where you wear your boyfriend's shirt as a night dress or something. Yeah. Because she's clearly wearing one of his Starboy uniforms. But
yeah, it's really weird. And then the Adam Warlock costume.
The what?
Yeah, the Sunboy is like wearing a costume that looks just like Adam Warlock's.
Sunboy is just super fashionable for 2087.
Okay. All right.
He's ready.
And Lightning Lad has gone per degaton with his fascist tunic top.
He's just like, hey,
yeah,
these suits are all the rage. Don't need a marching band.
Here's the thing. If you're going to show these characters out of costume, do it like Starboy, right? Go with something that is totally not the norm. But like Saturn Girl, she's essentially wearing a different costume. Same way with I think it's Cosmic Boy and not Magnetic Kid. Who knows?
Not Magnetic Kid. Yeah, he specifically mentions that Rock is in the past and he didn't marry Lita.
Yeah. And so, that if you're going to give them street clothes, give them clothes that don't make them look like they're in their costumes. I mean,
that's tough.
Shrinking Violet is the same way. Invisible Girl is the same way. They're all just wearing variations of their costume as their street clothes, and that's kind of dumb. That's kind of like wearing the T-shirt of the band that you're going to go see in concert.
Do you remember a couple of issues ago where Ultra Boy was literally wearing a sweater with his logo?
Yeah.
I'm just like, I don't think LaRocque does, these are future street clothes. It's cutting edge fashion in the 30th century.
I'm going to walk around from now on with my name across my chest, just so people are like, oh man.
As opposed to just in the back of your underwear like you do now?
Yeah. I'm going to make sure the world knows, right? It's just so dumb. I don't know.
Bet you have your name.
And so at the beginning of the issue, where Princess Projectora is just like, the rule of man no longer applies. It is corrupt. And then she comes back and it's like, we, the rulers of man, have decided that we will allow you back in by our vote of man. And it's like, okay, that's also the exact same thing that you were doing. Anyway.
Yeah, but it's the Legion. I mean, the Legion, I'll say this. That last panel may be the clearest look we have at Projectra's costume in the entirety of her run.
It'll change. It'll change.
Oh, yeah, it'll change, but it's a good shot. I really like it.
That wraps it up for this installment of the Legion Clubhouse. What did we learn this week?
We learned that Ronald Reagan is known for misspeaking.
I think we also learned that it's very hard to please Stephen when he's had a bad week of computer problems.
Yep.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us this week. We'll be back next time, I promise, with more of your favorite tales of the Legion. Why? Because we know that you love comics, we do too. And until then, I am, hey, look at this comic, and man, try to explain it to me, dude.
And I'm Dispenser Guy.
The Legion Clubhouse is a production of Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC, and is produced by Steven Schleicher. Your hosts were Matthew Peterson and Steven Schleicher. You can follow Matthew at Mighty King Cobra and Steven at Major Spoilers. You can follow this podcast on Twitter at Legion Clubhouse. If you have questions or comments, send them to podcast@majorspoilers.com. I'm Jason Inman. Until next time, eat it, Grandpa.
This podcast is copyright 2024 by Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC.